Hello, everyone. I am Patrick Smith, and we're here to do a session 1 p.m. where we're going to do a general Q&A with some of the network engineers and technicians at Marshall University. If you want, I'll let you all go around and kind of introduce yourselves so people will know who we're talking to here. But myself and Scott Nicholas are the moderators, and so Mr. Kevin Maynard, I think I'll let you go first, sir.
Hi, I'm Kevin Maynard, Director of IT Infrastructure Communications at Marshall University. I've been here, 23 years, I guess. So kind of watching your video there. When you started up, like I said, I've been here 23 years. It's just been a great experience for us. I started out at Marshall Community Technical College, just like you did. So grew from there.
Hey, my name is Jayvance. I work for directly under Kevin Maynard. Let's see, I think August of '98 is when I started working here at Marshall University. That's also about the time I was working on my information systems degree, management information systems. I also had Scott a long time ago whenever he was teaching in Corbally Hall here on campus. I also went through the MCSE classes as part of that curriculum. I started off working at the library as a student assistant in '98, moved into the help desk in 2001, worked there till about 2006 when I started working for Kevin Maynard as a telecommunication and data network specialist. I've been working there ever since, and I love my job. So I maintain the firewalls here at Marshall University, along with remote sites. I help out a lot with School of Medicine infrastructure over there. We do a lot of stuff with core routers, and in my specific group, we do a lot of core routers and edge routing. And I love my job. I like doing it every day. I've got my CCNA exam a while back. I've also got my master's in technology management, and both have helped me tremendously with my position here working for Maynard. So that's a little brief background for me. I'll turn it over to Seth.
Thanks. You know what? My bad. I didn't see all the extra people down here.
Hey guys,
sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. I like it backstage. It's nice. It's better for my face, my good side.
This monitor's too small for me to see everybody. My apologies.
Right. So my name is Seth Johnson. I've worked at Marshall since 2010. I started on the help desk, doing a lot of end user support. I started working with Kevin Maynard, I think, almost 2 years ago now. I, like JV, help maintain the edge firewalls, and I do a lot of work in the machine room. We do some core routing between buildings. I like to play with the fiber optics. It's pretty fun. I've enjoyed that part of my job, and that's where I am.
Fantastic.
So Mr. Peyton Stevens, he's kind of a special guy on our team now. I don't know if he's going to give you all of his kudos or not, but he's a student here at Marshall University. He's actually part of the university's cyber defense team.
Oh, okay.
He and his team last year competed in the nationals, and they actually won that out of 925 teams. So they placed number one. So that was pretty impressive. I think also recently he's been named as one of the top 5 candidates in the nation. So now I'll turn it over to him and let him speak a little about it.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm Peyton Stevens. I'm a senior at Marshall in the Cyber Forensics and Security program, and I'm a student worker for IT infrastructure. I also have my Network Plus certification. I'm working on my Security Plus, and I'm the president of the Marshall Collegiate Cyber Defense Club. I'm the team captain of our Mid-Atlantic CCDC team, and I'm also a part of the National Cyber League team, of which we've won the national championship last year, and we've been in the top 10 in the nation every season we've competed. And recently, As an individual, I was one of the top 5% of competitors in the country that was out of around 6,000 students. So that's just a little bit about me.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So he's probably going to steal all of our thunder today. We're glad to have him.
Well, I greatly appreciate all of you all joining us today because to kind of give you some background, one of the biggest things that I wanted to do and potentially demystify for people, especially in this field, is to understand, like you actually mentioned as well, Kevin, that you got to start somewhere. Both of us started at the community college, build up our careers, and many people before they even start have imposter syndrome. They can't think they can ever be where we're at, and it is a long journey, but you're never going to get there if you don't take that first step. So thank you all for telling me about your all's backgrounds and what you all do. For people who are watching this and are like, I want to know what I'm going to be doing when I finish up. Can you all tell me about your day to day? And I know the great part here is we have such a diverse cast of people here that each of your day to days may be different based on what has been delegated to you. But that's even better because people can hear about specialties and different areas, so they could have an idea of what to expect when they get out there in the networking field.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that first. Of course, mine's kind of boring nowadays. I've been a manager over probably 12, 15 years now. So my role is more in planning and budgeting and timelines and timesheets and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys. I don't really get a troubleshoot as much as I used to. So only if they need me to apply pressure. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys and let them discuss what they do on a day to day.
Yeah. So this is Jayvance. So with that said, I obviously work with what Maynard's timeline is. So we'll go with whatever he says. We got a core router that's going to be replaced. We got budget that's been approved. We got a core 6500, Cisco 6500 downstairs. It's probably going to be end of life or whatever. He'll say we're going to be purchasing this product to replace it. So what we'll do is we'll go through our config. We'll look at what we're connected with on our 6500 currently. We'll try to have a timeline of how quickly we need to prepare deployment of the new box. Do we need to clean up anything on the old box? So we'll work with Maynard on projects like that. So most recently, we replaced our firewall with from a Cisco ASA to a Palo Alto. So he gave us a timeline. He said, we're going to be replacing this in August. And this was like last year, 2 years. We've gone through different vendors. We worked with different vendors on proof of concept, figuring out how it would work in our environment. And then once we get through our IT exec and our management team and Kevin Maynard, we decide on a product, and then we try to understand how to use the product in our environment, and then what the config will be like that we need to put, because Cisco ASA, it's going to be a different config and the way you set it up than a Palo Alto. So we got to figure out the differences in how the data traffic works. So we look at our config, try to figure out how it's going to what we need to do to change that. Luckily enough, we were able to get their services to help us make those changes. So we work with Maynard on the timeline and how we want to implement. If we have any questions on this is different, how do you want it to go with fitting in our environment? We'll talk with Maynard about it, and then he'll tell us in the direction he wants to go with it, and then we'll make those changes appropriately. So Maynard's like you said, he's the overview, the management. He tells us this is where we're going, and it's me and Seth's job to comply with this is what we're implementing. We need to educate ourselves to understand what the differences are between the two products when we're upgrading, or if it's swapping out closets from different cabling. We're going from Cat 5e in this one closet, we're moving to Cat 6. So we're going to be swapping out switches. We're going to be going to a different rack location. So we're going to have to get different cabling. and update and figure out how much cable count we're going to need. So then we have to purchase that or make a purchase request to our vendor. So Maynard, again, our manager, is the guy that tells us how we're going to be going and what direction, and we comply and try to make that meet that objective for him. Now, I think the question was day-to-day activities, and so our day-to-day activity is kind of in between two different tasks. I think Seth can probably compound on it more, but it's either project oriented or it's maintenance, and what I feel like. So project oriented, we might be in the middle of deploying that firewall, and we still got to work on that VPN that we still got to deploy. So we have all these tasks, and we might be able to deploy the firewall, but we also have lingering tasks that goes on for weeks and maybe into months, and we work on those tasks. Once we're done with the project, then we go in maintenance mode. Maybe we need to look at firewall rules on that firewall that aren't being used anymore. So we might want to clean those out now. And that goes into maybe a maintenance day-to-day activity. We might swapped out those cables over in there, that closet. Well, we made a mess. So now we need to clean up all those cables, and we got to dispose the cables, and maybe we needed inventory, whatever we did. So there's project with tasks, and then after the project's done with all the tasks, then we go into maintenance mode, and our day-to-day project could be dealing with maintenance on the equipment. We might need to shut down ports that aren't being used on a 3850 after so long. So, I think day to day it depends, and it depends on if it's a project day and we got lingering tasks for that project, or it's maintenance from what we've done in the past or what we need to do to maintain. Might be software upgrades, for a maintenance project. So I think day to day would be categorized in that project oriented or maintenance.
I have a quick follow-up on that one for you.
Okay.
A lot of students Scott and I have now in the Cisco, Microsoft, cybersecurity realm, they may hear it, but they may not actually understand a maintenance window. So I was curious for you all talking about how you have maintenance tasks, because on your calendar, things have been working for, like you say, you may be spinning multiple plates, basically. So it's a day-to-day is not true. It's more like a project to project, and how many are overlapping right now. Can you talk about what your all's maintenance windows look like, and then how you have to work around those to try your best to make sure you're available 24/7 to your employees, your students, and your faculty? Well, because when you're talking about changing out that Cisco router, what I thought was, well, that's not going to be able to happen at 9 o'clock in the morning. You're going to have to figure out and budget a time that you can do that, or else you're going to have to go ahead and make sure all your routing currently goes through a different path while you're pulling that one off. So I just wondered, I'm assuming you are trying to be up 24/7 because you've probably got services like websites, Blackboard, stuff like that needs to be up. So I wondered what your all's maintenance window ends up looking like when you're having to pull down large backbone network infrastructure.
Well, that's not entirely true. So we do want to try to keep it 24/7, but it depends on what equipment is. Like our edge router, we have 2 points of entries for our internet, so we can replace one edge router and everything go out their backup. So we want to have our maintenance window typically on a specific time. We want to, because the users like to know this is when, if there's going to be an outage, this is when it's going to happen. So we like to try to keep it on a Sunday early morning for our users. Students are usually not doing schoolwork at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning. There's not really any faculty staff here. So we try to do work Sunday mornings between 4, and we service Marshall Health, and they kind of have clinics. So they have to have internet by 9 a.m. on a Sunday so they can start seeing patients. So our service window is typically Sunday mornings, and we do have a lot of redundancy built in our network to where we can keep our network up if we need to. But sometimes, man, we just tell the users, hey, we're going to take the network completely out of service between Sunday, between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. and don't expect it to be up, because it's just going to be a lot easier for me and Seth to swap out 2 routers real quick. Now, if there's an emergency, we obviously have to work through Kevin Maynard on that, and he usually makes the decisions on all these maintenances that we got to do. So we might be able to do something over Thanksgiving break. It's during the day, or maybe like after 5 or 6 or 9 p.m. at night during the week, because it's a Thanksgiving break. There's not many students on campus. We don't have any classes going on, so. But we have to work with Kevin Maynard, and he has to get that word out to upper management that yes, this is going to be an emergency situation. We need to have an upgrade to an iOS to our router, or we need to push this policy out to our firewalls or something. So with a maintenance window during a specific time, I think it's understood that we can take the network down. But if it's like on a holiday weekend or a holiday 3-day break, or we could probably, it's a little bit more loose after hours, after business hours, I'll say, after like 5 p.m.
So we have a normal scheduled maintenance window from 4 to 1 a.m. for main campus, and that ends from 4 to 8 a.m. for med school. So, but we're very limited during that time of what we actually can do. I mean, we can take out maybe a building or a switch or something like that, but anything major, we have 2 or 3 non-computing holidays over the term of the year. So we'll take one of those non-computing holidays and actually upgrade the data center or something like that. So this past September, that's what we did. We upgraded our data center switches because they were end of life, into support. So that was an all weekend ordeal. So
okay, that's great. I just know there's a storage intelligent storage management class that I teach, and we talk about how you're going to have planned downtime and unplanned downtime, and how the whole goal is if you pay $3.2 million for a storage array, you're going to want that sucker to be up 24/7 when possible. And so most of my students may have a mentality of, well, it's an 8 to 5 job, and they'll turn off the lights, and I can do my backup and stuff after 5. And I just know that you are an excellent, you're not unique, but you're an excellent case of, we got students who are potentially trying to use Blackboard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So suddenly we have customers all the time, like a Walmart would have. So I was curious how you all dealt with the tug and pull of, let's update our systems, but let's also try to stay up all the time. So I was just curious how you all are managing that.
Yeah, we kind of look at our graphs and our peak traffic time and things like that, and it's pretty obvious when our slow time is, and that's like at 6 a.m. So we choose that time. We still try to get an email out to the students and faculty and staff if we're having a major outage. Major outages is in our book is more than 5 minutes. So if we're going to reboot something like that or do a software upgrade, we definitely get the word out. But yeah, things have kind of shifted now. The students kind of drive everything. I mean, it's not more the discovery or the learning process. It's more gaming and things like that. And I'm not sure I could handle being a student anymore just because they're up all night, 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we had a huge spike in the network yesterday or day before yesterday. Kid was downloading 29 gigs of games. So it was crazy.
Yeah,
Get ready. November 12th. November 12th, PS5 will be out. So get ready for a giant spike again.
So yeah, it's definitely a different time than when we first started, Patrick. Kids are up all hours of the night. It's different for sure.
Great. With regards to having to do these upgrades, have there been some pretty big monumental upgrades that you all had to do? Like Jay was talking about the fact that potentially maybe it's a hypothetical or real, but you all had an edge router you have to replace. Had there been any large case, like I don't remember the specifics. I did technology management. I had a class with Brent Maynard, and he talked about how at one point things went poorly, I think, and people were actually sleeping in the server room trying to get a system back up. So I didn't know if if there was memorable, good or bad, memorable situations, and how you all came together and resolved that situation from a disaster recovery or business continuity standpoint that you might be able to talk about vaguely.
Yeah, I think we had one of those over the last holiday break that we had. One of the non-computing weekends, we were trying to get our data center switches upgraded. So we thought it was going to be an easy deal. We were going from a piece of Nexus gear to another piece of Nexus gear, and it did not go well. I mean, we weren't really sleeping while we were on the phone with Cisco, but we were almost. So, it comes down to some of the hardest issues we've had to resolve. Just sometimes requires a reboot of a certain device or something like that. We've also seen to where we get new hardware from Cisco, like a wireless access point. A few years ago, we got a new batch of the new hardware, and at some point during that life cycle or the frequency cycles, there was a bug. So we were on the phone hours and hours and hours with Cisco, and at some point we were just like, bring a team in, look at our RF and see what this is. So the next day we had a Cisco, I called them an assault team. They were basically the Geek Squad. They come in with all of their RF and tools and things like that, and they didn't want to be talked to. They didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to interact with anybody. They just wanted to be in a spot to where they could look at the RF. And in about a day and a half, they came out of their little hole and said, "We think we found the problem, and we got a quick fix." So there's many of those stories. We've had our core network completely fail at some point. Like JV said, we've learned a lot over the time. So we've built in redundancies everywhere. So our edge firewall, we have one over here, and we have one in our backup DR site. We have the same thing. Every building has a dual uplink to something, to one of our core routers. So the only thing that's not duplicated is the actual access switches inside the buildings. Everything else is pretty much redundant.
Okay, fantastic. I have a slight follow-up I thought about too. Kevin, I know when you first started in this, you mentioned earlier you were boots on the ground. You were potentially where Seth or Jay was at. When someone's thinking about getting into this field, I don't know that specifically they're like, you know what I want to be? I want to be a technology manager. But I'm willing to bet here the majority of us on this call probably got their technology management degree from Marshall. And so, I went through that, seeing how I can manage people. I'm curious for you personally, what extra skills did you find you needed making the transition from being, infantry to general to some degree? I'm imagining definitely some project management came into play there, but that's the type of thing that when people eventually move there, then maybe I'm like, I never thought about that in school. So it's good to maybe plan for, or at least think about in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I was fresh out of Wayne County, 1991. I came to Marshall. We learned a little bit about computers in school, but I think at that time I was more interested in the hardware aspect, what was under the hood, what actually makes this computer work. So MCTC had a great program, had some great instructors there. So that's where I started. At the time, we had an opportunity to go like a 2+2 program and continue on and get your bachelor's degree and things like that. So that's where I started. Obviously, as time evolves, you really get into the technology and you begin to love it. And once you're in it a while in that field, you realize what your passions are. One thing I will say, you really got to be committed to this. It's not an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5 job. It's pretty constant. So you really have to enjoy what you're doing in your lifestyle to finish this thing out. So Like I said, I've been here for 20, 22 years and still enjoy it. It's not getting any easier by any means. So always doing more with less. So just be invested, be committed into the job, into the field.
Okay, great. I have a follow-up question from what you were saying earlier from the internet or from your cousin, actually. She wanted to know, with regards to you mentioning students and how they're accessing, she was curious now, over your time there, have you seen trends? I mean, I'm sure definitely way more wireless because I remember back in 98 when I started, 802.1 11B was not a thing yet. But what are the trends now when it comes to, I guess, the housing, the dorms, students that they're connecting, and what, I guess, what new avenues of attack or vulnerability or worries do you all have based on those new trends? Because when it was wired, port security for the win right there.
Right.
But now, how has that changed?
So on the wireless side, we have, I think, 3,400 access points now. So 3,800 or 3,400 points of entry for anything. A few years ago, the decision was made to go through and put an access point in each dorm room. So, and in the bottom of that access point has 4 switch ports that we allow gaming and TVs and things like that. So students have every opportunity to attach anywhere. And as you know, each student has up to 3 to 10 devices. It just depends on the student. So there's a lot of things that come along with the security of that. We don't allow anyone to attach to the network unless they register like their device with us, or we use 802.1x, which is basically authenticating them to the network. So there's a lot of security features embedded there. As time progresses, you've got different encryption keys and different protocols and things like that you want to apply to the network. So you can't get behind on doing that kind of thing, especially in a university environment.
One thing that hit me too that I'll throw out there and ask is, and I've been asking everybody about this. I did an interview the other night for our spotlight of a guy who does penetration testing. He's out of Ohio, and so he's gone in, gets paid to go in and break into people's networks. That sounds like an amazing job. I would love to go that route for anybody out there who doesn't know what a penetration tester is. But I brought up, because he was talking about, breaking in, and we were talking about passwords and the longest password he's cracked. And I brought up the situation that I feel like we're in now with passwords, where if you're doing Microsoft, you're doing group policy, Microsoft gives you that wonderful built-in switch you can turn on that says, I'm going to do password complexity. Password complexity then says you got to have 3 of the 4 types of characters, at least 6 character length. And, the person who helped write those guidelines for the NIST has come out and said, I had good intention, but I've basically bred people who will now type the word password and put in an @ sign for an A and a 0 for an actual O, and computers can quickly break that with password entropy. And now a better guideline would be to have a 20-digit password that maybe 4 random words put together. And what I was discussing with him, and I'm curious to see what your all's take on this and what you all are doing at Marshall, is we have that wonderful switch in Microsoft that says they got to have complex passwords. They can't just type the word captain if their last name is Kirk, for example. If we turn that off, we then have to make sure we really, really educate our users. Even if we say it's supposed to be 20 digits, we got to educate them to say, don't type 1 through 0 twice. That's not a good 20-digit password. Even though they're saying if you make a password like chicken, hat, staple, magnet, that is a really good password. It's harder, complex, maybe easier for someone to remember. I was wondering how you all are grappling with stuff like that, because they even say now that if you make people change their password too often, they'll get complacent and they'll throw a 1 or a 2. And then when it comes to credential stuffing, they'll find it someplace else and then try it there and then try different variations. So I was just kind of wondering, since you all are in the heat of it, what's your all's current take on passwords, and how do you make sure they're secure, but also make sure they're not easily broken?
Well, I think at this point, we've gone away from a single factor authentication. So,
Oh yeah, good point.
So we do the password complexity. We don't make the users change the password as often as we'd like, but we do make them use Microsoft Authenticator, so which is a multi-factor authentication tool. At this time, we've not put that on to where they join the wireless, but if you're looking to get on our VPN, get your email, get anything through, it's through Office 365. We make you use multi-factor authentication for that. So you either get a text and you got to put that code in, or you just have a Microsoft Authenticator app that you just click approve. And you, at that point, you just enter your Face ID or your code on your phone to get that approved. So we've gotten on that pretty well. I don't think there are any students, faculty, staff using that anymore. We still have a couple of vendors that need to get on without MFA access, but it's very limited at this point.
Okay, good point. I have a question here for Peyton, and by the way, while we're talking here, I am gonna put up that link to the article there if anyone wants to go and check out the Marshall's Collegiate Cyber Defense Team wins the national championship there. Peyton, with regards to you being a student and now working on the job, do you find there to be differences working on the job versus class knowledge? Basically, since you're in the position of now you're working, what would you tell people advice-wise that is different or you weren't expecting out in the field?
My degree is really focused on the digital forensics and cybersecurity aspects. So coming into IT infrastructure, I really didn't know where to begin, but it was something that I wanted to learn about. What we deal with in the classroom is very conceptual, I would say. Marshall is very good in having hands-on exercises and labs where you can, really work with what you're learning with. But the thing that surprised me most was just troubleshooting. And I really have a weakness in troubleshooting just because I understand the concepts, but the application of them is difficult. And sometimes, I have my Network Plus certification, and sometimes I still have issues with basic troubleshooting that I'm trying to work on. But I would say getting into the job, you really just have to really go back to the basics and, just take it from one step at a time. Like my book that I read recommended just troubleshooting steps, and I find myself ignoring those a lot, and it's probably a lot of the pitfall. But coming into work at Marshall has been really valuable for me because I've actually gotten that, non-conceptual side. I've actually gotten to work, making the connections, seeing, firewall ACLs and all that.
Okay, great. Fantastic.
Quite a different setup from a lab environment, like you're in a class. You go into a lab environment in a class, you've got maybe 5 to 10 people hitting the switch or hitting the firewall rule. When you've got 20,000 devices going through a firewall and you're looking for one little needle there, so it's definitely a different experience.
I would agree. I see what you're saying. So yeah, here's a great one. I would say, Kevin, you're probably in the position where you are hiring on people for your team, or at least advising on people for your team. People out there who are considering getting into network infrastructure, because I would assume at this point people that are coming on, I know that Peyton is coming from a cybersecurity and forensics standpoint, but probably people that have a CCNA background or an MCSE background that have the networking's probably would be the wheelhouse for you, I'm hoping. And so what advice would you have to an individual who's coming in to interview with you? What advice would you have for that recruit?
Like I mentioned earlier, it's a commitment kind of thing. having a stake that you're committed to the program or the job. We get a lot of resumes in with people just saying they've done this or they've done that without any certifications or anything like that. So we really want to go a step above that and see people committed, especially younger students, getting that certificate, actually going through some of these programs like your CCNA program or the MCSE, just things like that show that they've gone above and beyond what 95% of the other people are doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What a common thread I see is that most of the time, the correct answer, I hear it time and time and time again. The people listening to this may not hear it time and time again, but like I say, I did the interview with that pen tester, and he hires people for his company, and he said, I want to see someone that has drive, because in the IT world, this is not an English or a math area. You're going to have to get recertified again and again and again. And if they walk in and they already want to like just punch a clock and leave, that's not the type of people I want. I want people who are energized. I want people who enjoy doing the job, because if they bring that, infectious nature in, it'll help my team. If they come in and it's a drag for them to come to work, it's not going to help me, and they're probably not going to get recertified later on. Right. And the question I posed to him that I also posed to you, because I kind of heard it mentioned there, I said in his field for cybersecurity, which would he give more preferential treatment to, or look at better, someone who has experience doing the position, or experience in field, versus someone who comes in and has a certification? Now, sure, you may have people with the same, but my question would be for you that if someone comes in with 3 years in field, let's say, maybe that's too much, versus somebody who comes in going through a 2-year program and having their MCSE, which do you value more? The MCSE, because this person has met the industry requirements, so I'm not going to have somebody who's an unknown quantity. They're going to hopefully know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Or the person who might have picked up some of that stuff, not all of it, but picked up some of that stuff through experiences working out in field.
I mean, that's always a difficult question to answer, because a lot of the experience relies on the size and the environment that person's in, that the experience is in. So
fair enough.
Anybody can say they've been 2 years in a warehouse doing inventory and things like that, but it could be a 10 by 10 warehouse. So
yeah. If they say that they were the store manager of Asbury's,
right,
which that's for all you Wayne people out there, and they go to Walmart and they're like, hey, I want to be your store manager, there's an orders of magnitude difference there. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there.
So certifications plus experience is always better, just better. I mean, it shows that you're committed and you were probably doing the best that you could for the experience that you got. So
let me add something to that, though.
Sure.
So it's good to have experience, a person with experience, but it can be bad too, because maybe here at Marshall, we have a certain standard on this is how we do things here. This is how we are running our network. And you have somebody who comes in and is only experienced to how they run their network, and they might not conform to how you run your network. And that could lead to tension. They might not, they might be stuck in their ways. I'm used to doing it this way. This is how I did it at my old job. And they're rocking the boat with a whole group of other people that this is how we do it here. And that could be a problem. So that experience, it could be bad. But then again, you got somebody who, I've recognized this problem before at my old job. We did it this way. You guys are doing it this way. I'm going to meld the two with my experience that I saw here. This is how you guys are doing it. And you got somebody who can help with the situation. So experience can go either way. Then you have a person with certification, and then they really don't know how to do it. They just know, like Peyton said, from a classroom experience, now they're an open book. They know how to subnet, but they don't know what you do with your subnets here. And then they learn how to apply what they know from a certification point of view to how your environment is and can work that knowledge into what they have. So, I mean, Maynard's right. This is a huge, tough question. So it's really a personality thing. And that's where you ask other questions in your interview when you interview people. You want to ask them, okay, you got this experience, and then you got to try to figure out, are they a person that's going to work with you, or are they really stuck in their ways and they're not going to work with you and they're going to rock the boat more? Or are they just got a certification? Are they going to be able to take what they know and problem solve it with what you got at your location? Or are they just going to just fall apart and just be overwhelmed because they only know this, and they can't troubleshoot it beyond what they know from a certification point of view?
JV, I think there are extreme parallels to what you just said that I find in the classroom, and I'm sure Scott can attest to this too. Like you said, I have students who come into my classroom who have experience, and they're going to tell everybody how it works. They've already been out there. They're worldly. They've already figured it out, and then they eventually have a bit of a coming to Jesus moment potentially, or I have to say, stop poisoning the well. Like, there's a way you're supposed to do it. You learned the wrong way. That's not the way to do it. So yeah, having experience can be a double-edged sword potentially if they didn't learn the right way. I agree with that. I just wondered whether, and like you say, it's a difficult question. I just wonder whether it makes more sense that you all can train them on the knowledge if need be. You need to make sure they can be a team player and work in the environment, that type of thing. And then once again, you don't have to make them unlearn things. I always heard, for example, that Microsoft, at least in the beginning, I don't know about now, they used to hire straight out of college. They did not want to hire anybody who'd worked for another company because they wanted to go ahead and instill in that person their corporate culture, not have to untrain them, basically, the culture they had and reform them. So I could see where that experience would be a double-edged sword.
That would be an ideal situation, really. I mean, our job classifications to get any kind of salary require 4 to 6 years experience really to get in our door. So you've gotten someone that's out there 4 to 6 years and you don't know what they've been doing during that time, and that's a difficult thing. Experience is, for sure.
Can you all speak to hopeful recommendations you would have for someone who's walking in off the street to go ahead and get hired in your area? So by that, like, and I know it's different for each company, but at Marshall, are you really hurting for Cisco people right now? And then which areas are you hurting for? On the Microsoft side, is there somebody based on your all's unique needs would be needing to look for out there, that type of thing, if they're trying to tailor themselves, or even just, with the years passing, technology changes, what is it you're asking for today, basically, that you might have not asked for previously?
Well, we kind of run the gamut on technology. I mean, we have guys that are Skype for Business. We have guys that are Teams only. So we still run the voice side of the infrastructure as well. So once we got off of the old Avaya gateways and the old Avaya telephone system, we kind of merged that onto the Microsoft world. So those skills were lacking. That was a huge hurdle for us, trying to get people to learn the Microsoft side just so they can configure their voice piece. So Microsoft is always a great one. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Cisco, we've recently had a reason to renew some of those certificates. So that stuff changes so frequently. And the new tracks that they're working on with security and other bolt-ons like that, like wireless. So our core of the network is all Cisco. So any certifications there is always a plus. Recently, we've purchased a Palo Alto firewall. They've got some self-study EDU sites out there that people can go out and look at and get some certifications there. So, but I think at that point, it's anything in the security field, anything Microsoft related, it's the future.
So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this rhetorical question, but you all aren't 100% cloud with Microsoft, right?
We're very close.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I was
We're
hoping
actually
you were going to say no way.
everything, all the Exchange, with the exception of our medical school. Our medical school, they still have some of the old Avaya telephones. So we route that voicemail and stuff to on-premise Exchange, but most of the other stuff's in the cloud.
But I mean, like, you have on-premise domain controllers.
Yes, but we have also DCs in the cloud as well.
Right.
So
Because
we're kind of that big hybrid, but on the move. We're trying to get rid of a lot of our on-prem Skype for Business servers, our on-prem Exchange servers. The next ones we buy will be a fourth of the size of the new ones.
Because Microsoft in January is expiring all of the existing MCSEs and MCSAs. So the MCSA on Server 2016, the MCSEs I teach on Server 2016, the Exchange tests, the SQL tests, all those. And now every single certification they offer will either have the word Azure or 365 in the title. And I'm very aggravated because I feel like this, if the student can learn on-prem, then they can also apply that to the cloud. But if they just do the cloud, they're not going to know how to set it up if they do on-prem. Like, it goes one way. And so I'm very aggravated with Microsoft that my classes, which will still have a lot of key technologies that I think are great skills to have, Microsoft is not buying them anymore because they're wanting to push everyone to an Azure-only state. So it's frustrating.
Yeah, I can see your frustrations there. I mean, we've seen that before with other vendors. Microsoft was kind of pushing everyone that way. Their licensing is expensive. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, 2016 got very expensive because it suddenly became per core, which is crazy. Yeah.
To get a student to an A5 license, it's kind of crazy.
Great. Well,
but we've had a lot of success with it. The infrastructure's been really well. It's taken care of really well.
okay. We're kind of winding down here at the end. I want to check and see if you all have any last minute advice or stories you want to impart to people who are thinking about getting into this industry or wanting to have an idea what it's like to have a day in your shoes, that type of thing.
Seth's been awful quiet. I'm going to let him speak first on this one.
I think when you come into this field, just be prepared for long nights and early mornings. I think that was probably the thing that was most eye-opening to my wife. I think I kind of had a better understanding of what to expect, but I don't think that she understood that there'd be some long weekends and there'd be some long nights. And, you know, it's part of the job. I mean, when you have an audience or customers who are mostly 24 hours, you can work whenever they're not there. So I think that was kind of maybe one of the biggest things to kind of keep in mind whenever you get into this field. And always be willing to take a new challenge and keep exploring on your own. I mean, I think that's the big thing too. You can get a lot of certifications. You can read a lot of books. You know, they're really fun. But when it gets down to it, I mean, there's no substitution for just getting your hands dirty. You try to challenge yourself, no matter whether it's at your house, just in your own home lab. I think that's been one place that I've found a lot of success when it comes to challenging myself and learning different concepts that maybe I wasn't familiar with. But just always questioning things. And I mean, I'm sure my coworkers can attest to it. I'm going to ask a lot of dumb questions, but you know, whenever you have a question, if you have somebody who has a lot more experience than you, glean as much as you can from them, because they're your peers, they're colleagues, and as you become smarter, they're going to have the ability to lean more on you in situations where, there's a problem that might arise or multiple problems that arise at the same time. So always ask questions. Don't be afraid to do that. And then always just keep challenging yourself to learn a new skill set, and do so even at your house. Because whenever you break something at home, you just have your wife or your kids that are mad at you for a few minutes.
Can I say something real quick for students?
Sure.
So when I came to Marshall, I came from a really low-tech background. I mean, we had a Gateway CalSpot box computer until I was 13 years old. But I really wanted to challenge myself and learn something new. And my freshman year, I got, well, I'll say stuck with being president of Marshall's Collegiate Cyber Defense Team. And it's really given me a perspective on incoming students. And a lot of people that want to get into, cybersecurity, pen testing, forensics, they think they're going to come in and be, hack the world man. And they think they're going to start out, popping boxes and getting shells all day. But they don't really understand the basics, and they don't want to learn the basics. So, and they don't really understand that it's a full-time education experience. If you're not working for an hour or two outside of the classroom, I don't think you're really doing yourself any favors. So I'd say, you're going to be a lifelong learner. So why not get started now?
Amen. Like I said earlier in the video, for the last 20 years, I've been recertifying. Scott even longer than me, because Scott taught me.
Yeah. I mean, I tell students all the time that if I knew when I started out that I was going to have to be taking tests for the rest of my life, would I have picked that? But this kind of job, I've always said it was so much fun, you'd almost do it for free. And so it's just great to be able to just get your hands on the technology with other people paying the bill, and be exposed to as many different kinds of things as you can, because you never know what you've picked up along the way that will get you a job somewhere. It could be anything.
I agree. Any other comments before we finish this off, gentlemen?
I don't
I
think
think it was a great session.
Yes. I want to thank each and every one of you all for coming in and talking with us. Great perspective into an area that I think a lot of people may not be aware of, because I think, Kevin, you said 34,000 access points. Like, there's no way my students are going to know, or the people on these streams typically are going to know a perspective like that in that order of magnitude. So it's great to hear about what someone needs to be able to get into the industry and potentially work at a place like Marshall University. It's great to hear advice from you all about your all's experience and what they should take from that. So thank you all very, very much. You all have a good day. Stay safe out there, and we'll see everyone at the next session. Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
Good to hear from you, Jay.
Hey, good to see you, Scott.